Greetings friends and welcome to another prop build. This is a 3D printed knife switch prop and it's turned out just fantastic. It's very authentic looking, and the best part about this switch is it's a functional switch. You can actually hear when it comes down, that click, that is, if you hopefully hear it on the microphone, that is a micro switch that is actually embedded in the bottom of this, which is also serviceable because this pin here holds it into place. It can be pulled out. This is a great functional, actual working light switch. So you can use it to control many different things in your haunts, escape rooms, everything like that. This will be for sale on Samhain.ca. Anyways, have a look at the following video on how I put this thing all together and tips and tricks onto printing it. Anyways, enjoy! As you saw by the opening of this video, I made a knife switch. Now, what's really cool about this is you can see that here on my Anycubic Viper, I printed this all in one pass on the same plate, with no supports and no extra stuff. The only thing that's extra is you'll see down here, there's a ring around the bottom you have to cut off. I just wasn't sure about how, look at that, it's got wiggle. But then again, the plate's cooled off now. Anyways, I'm going to go get this. I'm going to pop it all off and get it all cleaned up, and we'll talk about how this thing gets assembled. Now, when you go to assemble this thing, just a few little heads up. One, you want to trim that bottom off there, like I mentioned before. Now, this piece here just friction fits down, and the reason there's a hole right through is you're going to need a piece of 1/4-inch rod. This is just a bolt that I chopped the head off of. And what this does is it gives it, oh, it's really hard to do when I'm looking at the camera. This gives it extra strength, so when the handle goes on, the point of highest leverage, if somebody gives it a little bit too much chutzpah, that makes sure that this all stays together. And it's built to be nice and strong in that sense. 1/4-inch wood dowel, metal dowel. I'm just going to hot glue this in once I've got everything painted. Now, here you'll see that, you see that little nail that fell out? That is actually a very specific item. If you look right there in that hole down at the bottom, right there, there is a nail in there. And what that does is, with the micro switch that I'm going to have listed on the website, you can see it hiding in there. Right there. See that red part? That's the micro switch. And it's accessible from the bottom. And what happens is those two little tiny pins match up with the holes in the micro switch to hold it in place. So I did this so it's replaceable. So if something happens to the micro switch, you can still replace it. Now, this here, the rod that you saw, the 1/2-inch rod, goes through here, and then these two bolt heads friction fit on. But as a heads up, these are very tight tolerances, so you might have to take a knife, and when it goes down, just clean off the inside edge there. So if there's any mushrooming from where it went onto the build plate, because you end up with it flaring a tiny bit, just clean it up, and that should click on with full strength. Now remember, this is all printed in PETG at 0.15 millimeters. I'm just going to make sure that in the description of the video, the exact specs, and in the PDF of the actual file, we'll have the exact specs for what you need to print this thing at to get these results. My stuff is built very tight tolerance because it's functional. You know, there's movement here, and I want to make sure that everything fits. Now, the other thing you'll notice is underneath here, there is an indented and cambered spot, and that's for your screw to hold this thing to the wall or wherever you need to do it, and then you just take your cap and stick it over top. It should friction fit on. It's a little bit, I made this a bit looser. Same with the one down here. This is a bit looser. And what it does is then, yeah, it just hides your screws. Now, how this thing works completely is if you look right in there, you'll see a cam. And that cam will only engage, let me do it here. Listen very carefully. Maybe you can hear it on the microphone. Oh, you can't even know because those pins fell out and my switch isn't set. This will only engage that switch at about that level. So the switch has to be almost completely closed before that micro switch will engage. And as you can see, it is completely hidden. You can't see it. So anyways, I'm going to go through. I'm going to paint this up, and I'll make sure that I record the paints and the colors that I use, because a few of you requested that the paints that I've used on the video, that they know to go by. Anyways, I might do a little bit of sanding. You know, you finish up your prop as you want, but I'm going to go get this done, and I'm going to go get it painted, so I'll see you after. Painting's all done here. This is just my suggestion on painting, but I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did. So the first thing as I did is I used some of this, the dark steel. This is almost like glitter. You can really see the level of silver that it gives the actual item. I did a whole base coat of the whole thing except for the handle. The handle, I used this espresso brown paint, and you can see it's used up, and actually this caused me a bit of problems. So what I did then is I went through and I spattered it up. I shot it with the paint, and because it was very inconsistent with the nozzle, it kind of put on a bit more than I wanted it to, but it turned out pretty darn slick anyways. So I let that all dry, and once I've got it to that point, it's just a matter of adding a little bit of extra color. So here, with the red ochre, I went through and I put a little bit around the bolts, on the edges here, you know, wherever there was an edge, I put a little bit more rust, and it really hops up the look of it. Then I finished off with a little bit of raw umber, just to darken up a few areas that I wasn't completely happy with. It was too bright. And what it does is it mattes it off. You can see how it's shiny. And down at the base here, you can see a little bit of matte. You can thank the ochre for that. Now, the handle here is straightforward. I did a brown base coat. Then this here is something you may or may not have access to. If you don't have access to this one, just use aluminum tape. The silver will work just as well. This is copper tape, and it's used for stained glass, and I had it lying around, and I wanted the copper on it. But the handle here, God, it's going to be so hard because it's very thin. You can see how it's got red splotches on it. I wanted it to look like it was an old red handle that had slowly had its color worn away and been repainted. Just adds that bit of character to the whole thing. And I did that with a bit of acrylic, oh good gosh, acrylic paint, no duh, Christmas red. And I used a wet sponge to apply it, so you didn't end up with any brush marks when you did it. And then here I just took a little bit of the raw umber again and just rubbed it on with my hand to get that little bit of age onto that to finish it up. Now here with the micro switch, you can see that it's in there. You just have to go through, put a little dab of, hot glue would work before you insert the two little nail stubs through, like these ones here. Let's see if we can get it here. Before you insert those, put a little dab of hot glue in there and then push it in. And what it'll do is it'll hold it in place, but if you ever need to tap it out, you will be able to. And that will hold the micro switch all in place. And then you can see the whole thing works beautifully. It's got a really nice swing to it. Closes up gorgeously and has a very authentic, I'm trying to get the light on it better here, a very authentic look to it, and I'm really happy with how that looks. Regardless, the plan will be up on Samhain. This is a purchase plan, that's why it's 3D printer Wednesday, and if you use this thing and build it, you gotta show me what you end up doing with it, because this is a pretty cool switch. Anyways, thanks to my patrons and my subscribers and my viewers, all for helping out and watching my videos, throwing me a bit each month and all that jazz. It's greatly appreciated. Oh, before I forget, that's where you screw it to the wall and you just replace the top bolt to make it disappear so it looks all authentic. It's the small things that count. But regardless, thanks for hanging out. I hope you find this cool 3D printed prop something else, and have a good one all.